Yay, we're here, Tara.
We are here. We're back. Okay, wait. Marilyn,
Yes.
what I have to say is for those of you who are watching live, hopefully you saw the countdown. We have new countdown music, and y'all, I was back here doing like the Dougie. I was like the music is the hypest. Oh my god! Like it
The
feels
Dougie. Really?
okay.
Girl,
Don't judge
I don't know
me.
what you're talking about. Anyway,
Don't
hello
judge me.
everybody.
Hi, it's Tara,
And it's Marilyn.
and we are
And we are
back.
Tara, we are the what?
Solo
Solo
CEOs. I heard.
CEOs. Listen, I am excited about today's talk. Um, Terry, you I know are going to give a lot of detail, but for everybody that's here with us, thank you. We really appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us. Get those questions ready because we have the right person to answer them about podcasting.
Well, absolutely. And so if this is your first time with us, with the Solo CEOs, you are in for an absolute treat. One of
Mhm.
the things that we are very serious about is how do we have the right kind of conversations for solopreneurs and solo CEOs at the level that we can manage. So I don't know if y'all know this, but my friend and I here, we've got a podcast. We've been doing it like we've been fighting out in the trenches, y'all. Like I want to say we
We've been doing it for quite a while. And you know what? When you talk
uh,
about people pivoting, our podcast was a massive pivot because we were trying to do live events. And when the pendulum hit everybody, we had to pivot from being in front of you all live to virtual. So the podcast really was a pivot, Tara.
it was a huge pivot. And like I'm
Hmm.
not gonna lie, we know what we were doing.
No.
So Marilyn was like, "What's a podcast and where can I find it?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Girl," and this is after we had started a podcast.
See,
Um,
you didn't have to go in that direction.
I'm telling all of it. Now, and the reason why it's important is because y'all know I'm the researcher. I watched all these videos. I talked to all these people, and there were so many people talking about podcasting in ways that were way outside of the time that I had. Like Marilyn and I, we run businesses. We don't get time. I'm not going to be podcaster extraordinaire. And so what I needed someone to talk about podcasting in a way that made it
Right.
real for me, achievable, and that I could be successful about it because I ain't just trying to talk in the void and not have it drive business and create the type of impact to our companies that we wanted. And so we wanted, sub Gloria, good to
Hi,
see you.
Gloria.
So we want to bring to you an expert, somebody that was able to kind of help us cut through all the weird conversations, all the extra, everybody that's trying to sell their 15-step system
Yeah.
on podcasting, amazing.
Yep.
But somebody was willing to keep it real. And so that's why I'm so excited. We get to bring you Adam Reynolds. Now, y'all, this is Adam.
Hello.
Hey,
How
Uh,
are you?
Adam.
like so Adam is really humble, so I'm about to drop a few gems about this man we have right here. So Adam was head of production at one for a podcasting at one of the biggest talent agencies, where all the celebrities get their agents.
Like
Yeah.
me and you, Tara.
Like Flip is like
Well,
to
we
us.
were outside of the building.
Maybe not us, but people almost as famous as us.
Hmm.
Adam was working with. Not only that, now he's a co-founder of Denim Productions. They have helped produce some of the biggest podcasts, the ones that you are listening to every day. Um, and Adam is just a really cool dude. Like he's a
Thank
photographer.
you.
He is down to earth. And when I got a chance to sit at his feet and learn, I took lots and lots of notes. And so get y'all notepads out. I hope y'all ready for this.
And as everybody should know, if you've ever listened to anything that Tara and I have done, you know we are always keeping it real and we want you to keep it real. So please, if you have any questions during our conversation with Adam, drop them in the comments and they will be part of the conversation because Adam has promised that he will share what he can so that at the end of the day, we walk away learning a lot more than we came to this party with knowing. So, with that said, Adam,
All right. So before we even get into the specifics, one of the big questions is everybody named Mama has a podcast, and I do mean everybody named Mama,
I think some people, yeah, they mamas. I've heard mamas on the podcast too.
right? And so I think there's a question about our podcast still relevant? Like for me to start one when I'm not a massive celebrity, do they even still matter?
First and foremost, thank you for that very thoughtful introduction. I love seeing the back and forth banter between the two of you. It adds a really fun dynamic and level of energy. So, and also I'm honored to be here. So thank you for having me on. We've definitely had some really great conversations over the last couple of months, and it's been a joy to dig into those topics. To come back to your specific question, yes, everyone and their mother has a podcast now. The growth rate for that industry has been remarkable because the barrier to entry is so low. And that's not a negative thing. It's just everyone can go out and go to Best Buy and get a $100 microphone, and suddenly, you are now able to record audio in a clean way and broadcast and put it together. I think one of the things that is, and I can speak to the larger state of the industry, which we'll get into, but one of the biggest challenges is people coming to the table just thinking, oh, we just want to talk and we want to gossip, and that's it. That's enough to carry an audience and build an audience. And the reality is, that's not true. I know there's a lot of shows that seem like it's just talking, but the reality is there's a lot of research, there's a lot of prep, there's a lot of time and attention and focus that really go into making that show a success with whatever guest is on. And so one of the first things that we had touched on in our initial conversation was the idea of approaching this in terms of what is the season arc that you're looking to do? What do you want to accomplish across 10 episodes or 20 episodes or 30 episodes? And how do you start to map that out from a strategic standpoint, especially if you are a company or your business and you have a very clear marketing goal or directive or KPI that you're trying to hit? Like what is the strategy, and how do you position yourself as a thought leader in that space? So that's kind of the overview, and I hope that sort of answers. Happy to dig deeper, but we'll toss it back for some more questions.
So Adam, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but when Tara and I started talking about podcasting, and after like a half of a conversation with you, she came back and she said, podcasts should be in seasons. And I said, seasons? She's like, because it's a show. I was like, oh my God. So how unstrategic were we? I don't know how many people fall into that bucket of not understanding that there needs to be a true strategy around creating a podcast. Because to your point, people are able to go and buy a mic, they have a laptop or a cell phone, and here we go. Mm-hmm. How important is consistency? Because you talk about episodes and things like that. Can you talk to me about the importance of consistency for some people? Because people start and stop a lot. And so you go out and you look at these podcasts and you might find 4 and then nothing else.
Yep. That's a great question. And that's something that in podcasting 1.0, the original iteration of that, where there wasn't as much attention and focus on not only the economic and business aspect of building a business around podcasting, but just the market also wasn't as saturated. I think you could be a little bit more lax in terms of releasing episodes. But nowadays, especially in the more commercialized space, you have to think about what is the strategy and how consistently are you going to be releasing episodes? Is this a show that comes out once a month where you have a big sit down interview with a very special guest and it's very in depth? Is this a weekly show? Is it a bi-weekly show? What is that structure? And you have to, I think, especially as you're starting out, you have to be realistic about what can you take on? What can you actually do? And the big thing is from a network and buying standpoint, companies like iHeart or Audible, less Audible, but iHeart, Odyssey, any of these big podcast networks, they want consistency. They want a weekly show that's going to come out so an audience knows, great, 9 a.m. on Wednesday, I can tune in to this show. And the reason for that this gets more into the business model of it, is the economics and advertisers, because they want to know that eyeballs are coming to the table and that there is a consistent time and place for the show to exist. So taking a step back, it says, as you're thinking about the ideas for, again, whatever show you want to do, what is the commitment that you can realistically make and stick to that? And what we always advise is, rather than doing, cool, I recorded an episode, let's release it, you're now in this position where you're kind of behind the 8 ball, because now you're rushed to get the next episode recorded and get that out. What we always advise at Denim is, and we were doing the same thing while I was at UTA, it's, you should, before you even launch, you should aim to have anywhere from 4 to 8 episodes pre-recorded and done. And that way,
that's crazy. So we have to have that many different conversations. I mean, it's smart. It makes sense, as you pointed out, but wow.
It gives you a buffer, and it guarantees, like, great, I have 8 weeks of shows that are going to be coming out. It also puts you in a position where you're not rushed and constantly scrambling to play catch up, because let's be real, booking guests can be really challenging. There's a lot of people that can be flaky in the space. It's like, especially when you're working with celebrities and big talent. It's like, great, I'm available. Nah, I'm not available anymore. And you're like, oh, well, we don't have an episode for next week. So it's good to create a little buffer for yourself so you have some flexibility. And also, let's be real, I want to take a vacation next week. I don't want to work. So I don't have to, because we know we already got the episode recorded and we can release it.
Okay, so I'm hearing a couple of things that I want us to kind of dig a little bit deeper into them. So first thing I heard you say is, like, for the really big podcast networks, the media out there, in order to get sponsors, like, they are grinding through on a weekly basis lots of content. Now, I'm not that kid, right? And so number one, for a business like my size, does that mean I should not be looking at sponsorship as monetization up front, because it sounds like it's going to take more than I honestly want to do or even can commit to with my business? Is that what you're saying?
It depends. And I think it's obviously everyone has a different need and structure for the show. And I think this is where it comes down to, what is the intention of you creating a show? Is it to build a commercial business around podcasting, or is it to help leverage and market the business you currently have? Because if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, then you have a lot more kind of liberty and free reign to do as you please. And again, I would say, how do you create a show and a season that is structured around your marketing goals and reaching your target audience and your demographic that you need to draw in for business? Even if it's not business, it's how do you talk with other partners or other people in the space and have the important conversations that people aren't having, so that it positions your team as a thought leader in the space. On the commercial side of it, that's an interesting business model that is still constantly evolving. There's a lot of aspects that go into, let me take a step back. So podcast 1.0 was audio only, and it was very lax in that space. And this is pre-pandemic. The pandemic obviously picked up and drove podcasting numbers a lot higher because everyone was home. There's a lot of creatives that are trying to create and drum up business and do things. So that kind of flooded the market. That introduced Zoom recordings, which obviously made it much more acceptable to have a video component. Still not of like the top tier caliber, but now we are in this premium space where these are no longer video podcasts. And again, this is on the bigger commercial scale. So like an Alex Cooper, Rule Breakers with Soraya, a Stephen Bartlett. These are now in the again, no longer video podcasts. These are premium digital talk shows. You're in this space where you start to see they are not just delivering high production value video, but they're starting to get ready for secondary licensing. So what you're going to see happen over the next couple of months and years is a big shift of podcasting, especially folks that have a very large database, go from traditional YouTube to a Netflix, to a Hulu, to a Roku TV. Stephen Bartlett has already done this with Roku TV, I believe. Those streaming platforms need more content for less money. The economics of podcasting are honestly cheaper than doing a TV show. So How do we take these premium digital talk shows and move them to the big screen? And so, for context, I've had the pleasure of working with Alex Cooper. I've consulted with her on a few things. The biggest is we did a big studio build for her in January of this year. It's a whole studio upgrade. I can honestly say that from like a tech standpoint, she has one of the more state-of-the-art studios in terms of media redundancy, camera quality, all of that, lighting. It was a big investment. She spent a lot of money on that.
And those of you that don't know, Alex Cooper is the Call Her Daddy podcast.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And who just had a documentary come out on Hulu. So that's kind of making waves right now. But that's a big shift, and she's ready. When her serious deal for $125 million is up in a couple years, Netflix is knocking on that door, and I can tell you they're probably going to be putting between $300 to $500 million on the table. So that's the big commercial driver. Mm-hmm. Most folks don't fit into that model, but it's important to recognize that podcasting on the video side is going to that premium space. Us here in this space, what do? Again, it comes down to what are our intentions? Are we trying to build a commercial business, or are we trying to help market the business we already have? And I think a lot of folks can really leverage podcasting in that internal marketing space in a much more economical way than going and shooting a commercial for your business. Mm-hmm. Another example I would say, and I know I'm rambling, but I get passionate about this stuff.
You're definitely providing us with a lot of good information. And as you continue to, as you would say, ramble, can you drop a few number ideas out there so people out in the audience can get a sense of this might cost me $100 versus $1 million?
Sure.
Because usually that's for small businesses, that's the next question is, after can I do this? The next question is, okay, how much is this going to cost?
100%. So on the commercial side of things, we are in sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Don't worry about the numbers on the commercial side. Like, we're not there yet. Let's do a step up. So more so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on the marketing side and kind of like internal business side of things, I think it's, do you have the resources internally to have a producer who can shape a schedule, bring that consistency? If you have someone internally, you can do that. Generally speaking, on a per episode basis, you can be producing podcasts for $500 to $2,500 an episode on like the video side of things. You can certainly do it for less money. There's a lot of people that do bootstrap and they're doing everything internally. But I think it's also recognizing that a lot of people are, taking on that work themselves. And it is a lot of time. It's a lot of energy that goes into it. But from an equipment standpoint, you can be up and running for a couple $100. Again, this, Blue Yeti microphone, I think you can get at Best Buy for a couple $100. And it just helps. And I think it's being able to be mindful of if you want to be taken seriously in the space, invest in the equipment, invest in a microphone. As you start to grow and build, great. We have in-person setups. We can get 2 different microphones coming in. You can start to kind of increase it that way.
That's very interesting. And we have a question from Latoya, which I think really fits well into what you're talking about when you're talking about building that whole idea of the programming in, and it's as it relates to business podcasts. Do you recommend the episodes building on each other in a similar theme? So now that we've come to understand that we need some seasons, how thematically should that flow, if at all?
That's a great question. And Latoya, thank you for raising that point. Stories are what bring us together. Mm-hmm. That's part of why podcasts are so successful in the first place. They're 2 people sitting down and talking, and then you're hearing a story. There aren't a lot of shows right now that are approaching it thematically throughout a season, because I don't think that there is that TV mindset and structure fully in place yet. Okay. I think that's part of this next evolution. That's part of what I believe in is how do we create something so that An audience can go back, or a creator or a podcaster can take a step back and say, cool, this is a work of art for me. This is the beginning, middle, and end of a story, a theme, or whatever it is for your business. I think that not everyone in the audience is going to pick that up and understand that, wow, thematically there's something here, but that's really important. I think if you can point to that and show that there's focus in the messaging that I'm trying to bring, that's ultimately going to help your business, because it's saying to a customer or a potential customer, oh, wow, they're efficient. They know what they're trying to communicate. They know how they're trying to get someone from point A to point B. And, a lot of that also comes down to booking guests and how you can do it, but take the time to prep and figure out what is that season arc and the messaging that you want to communicate over the course of 10 episodes, 20 episodes, whatever it is.
Okay, so I love this idea, and as a business person, I think I struggle with what is the narrative arc over a season for my business. So like let's say I'm a marketing consultant, and I go into companies and I help them figure out their branding or any of those things. Like what would, I'm putting you on the spot, I know. So I'm sorry. But, like, what would an arc look like? Like, what does that mean to have an arc for a service-based business or a business of any sort?
Great question. You talked about branding and marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is branding? What is marketing? What does that mean to you? Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
Lay that foundation, lay that groundwork, and then, okay, as a marketing or branding executive, what is your day-to-day? What is your creative process? And chunk that out into different episodes so that not only are we getting a sense of like holistically what your company does, but we're getting a sense of what your process is. And I think people would then be able to relate and say, oh, wow, I absolutely love what she's bringing to the table and the way in which she approaches this. Talk about how you're engaging with your clients. What is that dynamic? What is that relationship? How are you giving feedback? How are you receiving notes from them? How are you addressing overages in the process? Like, cover every aspect of it and think about it as like you're an expert in this space. And I can say this because I often lose sight of this, and that's why it's like this is the first time speaking to these things. Is you don't realize how much information you typically retain, and to people who aren't in that space on a day-to-day basis, for you it feels like, oh, it's redundancy. This is not that exciting, but then you're like, oh, most folks aren't privy to this, and that goes across any industry. So break it down as like those famous like Spanish for Dummies or Accounting for Dummies, those books. It's actually a great model to be thinking about and following, is how do you simplify it and start to just convey a message and communicate in a way that the everyday person who isn't an expert in your space gets to know you and your business.
So season 1 could be like, this is how I work. And then season 2 could be a particular problem or a particular aspect of how, so that each one could have a narrative space. Because I do think that people worry that if I'm trying to get my whole story out, I need to show everything in up front so that people buy and they know everything. But I love the idea of making it a narrative arc so that they'll get enough to want to work with you.
It's a slow burn. It's not, this is where it's also really interesting. And this is as branded content is continuing to come to the forefront of financing a lot of commercials and entertainment right now. It's hard to convince traditional advertisers to not do a commercial because they're so used to like, oh, we have one shot, we have one spend, we got to communicate all of this messaging in 30 seconds. Guess what? The audience doesn't fucking care anymore. Like, sorry for cursing, but
welcome home.
we're smarter than that. We want something. We want authenticity. We want meaning. We want a reason to come back. We want a reason to believe in the brand. And I'm working with one particular agency right now that deals with a lot of speakers, and they're dabbling with like, okay, well, how do we get into the podcast space? What do we do? It's like, well, what are some of the biggest problems you see across this industry? Well, there's no way to communicate and broadcast. How do we highlight the people that are on our roster? It's like, well, you put them on a podcast. You have them as guests on the show. You have a host who's there and can ask questions that highlight their specific speaking niches or whatever their, very specific perspective is. And you draw that out and you just let people see like, oh, wow, this company or this agency is a thought leader in this space. And it's that consistency. It goes back to episodic releases over a period of time and being consistent with those releases, knowing that it's not, it's one episode, here's everything, I'm done. No one cares. It takes time to build the audience.
And so listening to you really meticulously talk about how this is created, Tara's worked with me long enough to know my brain is going, okay, so how can I implement any of this into AI? How do you, because as a small business owner, where we are specializing in solopreneurs, but we do have people that work with and for us at times. We have to make sure the lift isn't too heavy. So AI has been a godsend for many, including me. And so I'm thinking through this and I'm like, so how could I do some things utilizing AI technology to kind of help me along before I call you?
I love this question. And this is, I use it every single day.
Yay, you're my hero. I love that.
I'm happy to admit that and acknowledge it. I think there's so much creative prep and structure that you can bring to the table through that, and real life examples of how I'm using it. This one show in particular that we're actively producing and involved with is a show called Rule Breakers with Soraya. And Soraya is a former WWE wrestler. She's been in the States since she was, I want to say 18 years old. And, she's retired from wrestling, but she has this incredibly loyal fan base of over 6 million followers. And she's looking to rebrand and figure out the next chapter of her life. And so part of that creative process is getting, what is Soraya's tone? She's a goth wrestler. I knew nothing about wrestling, so this is all new to me. I had to do a lot of research. 100%. And she's unique in the space, and it's like, okay, well, what is her tone? So setting up a chat GPT system where I can effectively, and sorry, my son is crossing in frame here, setting up a chat GPT model where we have taking all of the information and research for Soraya, being able to dump it into an AI model that then says, okay, it's trained on who Soraya is. It knows her tone of voice. It knows how she speaks in interviews. It knows all of those things. And then every episode that we go in, and when we're looking at guests, it's like, okay, how does this guest fit into Soraya's world? How is this person a rule breaker based on what all of the social information you have? And that spits out a bunch of research that we can then say, great, these are talking points in the episode. We use it at the end of the episode because I'm taking notes and everything through the recordings. We then say, great, convert these notes into a 2 to 3 sentence opening monologue and closing monologue. That's done within a matter of seconds. So we can now put it up on a teleprompter. Right. Soraya can read that at the, once we're finished the recording. So we have the intro and outro for the show. Same thing with when the show is ready, we're able to, how do we generate a title? Like, what are off the transcript? What are key things that we could use for a title of the show? How do we write an episode summary for the show? All of these are just in like the creative process, which I'm the only producer on the show. So this is saving me tons and tons of time. We haven't even touched on the post-production side of things. So there's a great system and a great platform called Descript, which I want to say it's a couple $100 for a year-long license. You're able to basically take your audio and video. It's a split screen. So on the left, you have what looks like a traditional Word doc. On the right is a timeline in an edit software. Most people are intimidated and have no idea how to use Adobe Premiere or, any of the editing softwares. But what they've done an amazing job is you can edit the Word doc as if you would be editing a traditional Word doc, and it makes those edits automatically in the timeline. So you could say, you know what, I don't like when I say this sentence. I'm going to delete that, and it's deleted from the audio or video and the next thing over, and that's all you have to do.
That's
So
crazy. That's crazy.
it's definitely moving things along. And again, as I said in the beginning, it's lowering that barrier to entry to make it more and more possible and feasible for people starting out and curious to be able to jump in and start creating content.
Interesting. Tara, we have a couple
We
questions.
got
Really good questions.
Great questions. So one of them, and I'm gonna put up two separate questions, but they're on the same thing. So we've got Gloria's question around like basically solo videoing, right? This versus guests, right? So there's and Sarah also. What's up, Sarah? Also has a question about kind of going it alone. I think for a lot of people, whether it's because they want to build the authority themselves or just from ease, this idea of being a solo podcaster, man on man, woman on woman to the screen is something that is appealing. But is it something that still works? Right? Is it a remnant of podcasting 1.0, as you're saying? Or is there something that an audience would even be attracted to now?
100%. It depends on who your audience is. And if you look at, there's two case studies. While I was at UTA, we helped launch a show for Lucy Fink called The Real Stuff with Lucy Fink. She's very much an influencer based on the East Coast. She's done very well for herself in the TikTok and Instagram space, but she wanted to do a podcast. She comes from a family. Her dad was a radio DJ, and she's very familiar with that. We found that, and this brings up another point, actually, we found that as we launched the show, we worked really hard to have guests on, but we found that her audience was actually more engaged when it was just a solo episode with her.
Really?
100%. And that's something that a lot of podcasting, because you're not so rigid and set in your ways, there's a lot of A/B testing. So you're getting feedback pretty quickly. But then you start to make changes and you say, you know what, this isn't working. Or the fans, they want more AMA episodes, Ask Me Anything episodes. They want to hear more from the people that are hosting the show, because a lot of times this is a more intimate way to feel connected to those people. And at least on the commercial side. Now, again, I think it varies in the marketing and business side of things, but at the same time, don't be afraid to ask your audience. Ask them
that idea. You know what? Earlier I was telling Tara, I like to listen to podcasts because I like to feel like I'm the person at the table next to the people having the conversation. And what you're saying, it does make sense that there are a lot of people that want to be the person next to the conversation being had so that they can, well, we're nosy. And when it comes to the business side, though, learn about certain things. So just the idea of the solo piece, that's really interesting. And then I'm leaning into what Donna asked about, is it worth then having a studio? Is it worth going out and having a studio versus just doing something in your house?
Renting space in a studio.
Renting a space, yeah.
Great question. I would first like to take a step back and just say, I think you bring up something that's incredibly important, and that is your own personal preference. Do that. Whatever you respond to most as a podcast listener, pursue that structure, because that's the most authentic to who you are and what you respond to in terms of listening. So if you're able to create something that's in that space, it's going to feel more natural and at home to you. And I know it sounds very basic, but like, make what excites you and just put your own spin on it. Going back to the studio or at home space, it really comes down to budget. I mean, there are people that are out of the gate and spending, studios can cost anywhere from $250 to $350 for a couple hours in a studio. let's be real, not everyone has that kind of budget to go and time to go to that space to do that. What we found recently with like a lot of UTA clients is we've actually been going in and doing a lot of home studio builds. And
Really?
yeah, and if you think about it, it makes sense. It's like, why would they invest in going to a studio every time? I see it. Thank you. Whereas you can have it in the comfort of your own home, and whether that's in a spare bedroom, a garage, or an extra room like an ADU, you can easily set those up and get that up and running for a wide range. For example, for Soraya's show, that build, and this is again a little on the higher side, but to give you guys a range, that build was about $35,000 to paint, set dress, lights, cameras, all of that stuff. It's a state of the art. It's ready for, it's 4K. It's ready for that secondary licensing and streaming. Alex Cooper's build, north of $300,000.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that.
Great.
So how do you, great. Okay. If you're doing it
My
at your
bills,
home,
my bills, it's not that.
but exactly that comes down to, and that's where the vast majority of people sit. And that is, okay, well, it's a couple $100 for a mic. It's a nice light that kind of adds a little extra to it. And it's being able to zhuzh the space in a way that makes it feel a little bit more special than just this bland room without any lighting and just very generic dark space.
Okay.
So and this is something that we actively do, is we consult with a lot of people of like, great, what's your budget? There is no shame in whatever it is, but we have recommendations for every price point. And that's something of, we, at the end of the day, we just want to make sure people are comfortable in the space, makes them look good, they sound good, and that audience is going to respond to it.
No, one of the things as we talk about this, Karen says Alex looks very cozy. Yes, Karen, get your $300,000 together. You too can have cozy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Wait, and when we met with Alex, I'm sorry, Adam, the first time, it was you were having your studio built, weren't
yes.
you? Is this it?
This is, yes. So I had recently moved into a new space in Los Angeles, and it's an older house. The garage was just beams, and we had a contractor come in, but I was like, look, let's put walls and insulation, get this up and running, because I need a place to, place to work. But it's great. It's a, you know, a home setup that's very easy, and yeah, just grateful to be able to work from home.
So okay, Adam, I have a urgent question that if we finish this Guru Talk and we don't cover it, I'll be very, very sad. And where it comes from is when we had our consult. Yes, y'all, I paid some ducats to the Guru. Like, I use my own money because Adam,
that's why we know he's a guru.
Adam is worth it, right? This is like, I need y'all to understand that, like, I bow down to this man. One of the most surprising and exciting things that you told me, because I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to use this to market my consulting business. And Adam was like, and there's some things that you can do that could also help monetize it. And I was like, wait a minute, wait, I could make some money too. Because I, you know, in my mind, I had just thought like, I'm not going to be. Okay, that's the cutest.
That's the office
summer break.
Yep.
But you know, like the fact that whilst I'm not heading for commercialization and looking to see if I can get my Netflix deal right now, TBD, y'all. The main focus is marketing, but I really love that you had some ideas around how, even at the level that I'm coming in, that there may be some ways to monetize it, and would love to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and I reference Stephen Bartlett. I reference Joe Rogan. Personally, I'm not a Joe Rogan fan, but I look at, these are folks, among many other, Alex as well, that started out with just an idea to sit down and start reaching an audience. And over time that builds. And I think this comes back to the talking point of consistency, which feels like a reoccurring theme in this conversation. it's being consistent and knowing that as your audience starts to show up and you go from 20 listeners to 120 listeners to 2,000 listeners, 10,000 listeners or downloads an episode, up to 20,000 downloads an episode, something's happening. You're communicating, and audience is responding. Advertisers notice that, and they're like, "Oh, their eyeballs are going here. Cool. Let's paid media behind this. Let's put advertisements in it." And there's a couple different paths right now. The two most immediate are, trying to get a podcast network to the table and either offer you a minimum guarantee, which is money up front to go make your show, or, hey, we're going to sell ads against this and help you earn revenue. The challenge in that space, and I'm not saying this as a discouraging fact, I'm just saying that the goalpost continues to move, because it went from, oh, we need 5,000 downloads an episode. We need 10,000 downloads an episode before we can start selling ads. We need 50,000 downloads an episode before we can start selling ads. Why is that happening? Because the market is so saturated. Advertisers have so many options to put money. We're very fortunate for Soraya's show, Rule Breakers. We Cash App, we're effectively 12 episodes in, and Cash App was like, hey, this is gaining traction. We want to put money behind this. Here's $30K to go make a couple of ads and incorporate them into your show. Again, not every show gets there. Very fortunate to see that firsthand, but taking a step back from that, in the more immediate space, and this is what puts YouTube at kind of the forefront, and there's a larger kind of like media summary here that we're coming to, is that you can, if you're recording video and you're putting it on YouTube, you can start monetizing at a fairly low number. And that's simply, great, here's video, the show's out, it's gaining traction. Guess what? I'm making, I don't know, a couple $100 off these episodes and ads, or a couple $100 a month, and that's great. And I think it slowly gets there, and just knowing that it does come down to consistency. It comes down to seeing the long-term vision, knowing that it's a marathon, not a sprint, and that you're eventually going to get there. And I think taking a step back from all of this is to say, look at the larger media landscape right now. Look at where we are with, hold on a second. Oh, please. Thank you. Look at the larger media landscape in that you had studio networks, Warner Brothers, Legendary, Discovery. They were all kind of dominating the space, and they were the gatekeepers. That industry is effectively wiped out, and it's no longer run by the studios. It's run by technology companies. You have Apple, you have Amazon, you have YouTube and Google. Money is not an issue for them. They're going to continue to dominate. They don't need to be making TV shows. They're doing, I mean, it's a tax write-off for them, but they're doing it, and they're dominating the space. YouTube is there, Hulu, or not Hulu, but Netflix isn't the same model as them. They're fighting to keep up, and the only other studio that's in that space that's also doing it is Disney, and they're a better position. But just be mindful of that and think about how that media landscape is changing, and just know that that barrier to entry to get in is lower, and there's nothing stopping you from starting something. It comes down to that consistency.
Well, and connected to that, Donna had a question around the platforms, right? So you mentioned, YouTube is a space, Spotify is a space. There's lots of places that we can go. Is there, like, from, whether I'm doing it for commercial reasons versus marketing reasons, do you have recommendations on kind of what's best for where we should be?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate you bringing it up. The marketing side of this is interesting, because let's say you have a $50,000 a year marketing spend. Okay, how do you traditionally do print ads or LinkedIn ads or whatever it is? How do you start to take that and say, all right, how many episodes can I get? How much can I make of that? How do I then take those episodes, cut them up into different social clips? How do I post to LinkedIn? How do I continue to use that And what's amazing is there's so much content that can be pulled from a single podcast episode. I don't even want to call it a podcast episode, a single recording, a single conversation. We could take this right now and take the transcript and then generate an article off of this, quoting me, quoting you, doing all of these things. So whatever you needed, you could splice it up. We could take the social clips from this. We could use it to drive traffic to your website. You can promote paid media through YouTube or paid media on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. You can do all of that from this content that's easily cut up and used to move around. So in terms of specific marketing strategies, this is something that we also do consult and advise on, is like, let us spend time with you, get to know what your business model is, what you're looking to do, and we can kind of make those personalized recommendations, because there is no one size fits all. There are just so many different strategies and ways to approach it. But starting with audio, where you're able to get a lot of content out of it, is a good place to start.
Interesting.
That's such a good reminder around every time there's like social media is just marketing. Like these are all just channels. And so the idea of of figuring out what your marketing strategy is and what the right places for you to be, that's where you be rather than thinking like, okay, there's a platform that's going to be the best platform for me. It depends on your audience.
It depends on your audience. And I think the most important thing is speaking to your core audience first. Don't try and win someone in Ohio that has never thought about, I don't know, cargo container shipping. That's a weird example, but it's top of mind.
It sounds like that could be something that's going on in Ohio.
But, figure out like, who is your core audience? Yeah. Who is your core demographic? Speak to them first, because what's going to ultimately happen is they will organically share that with other people in the space. If they're responding to it, they're like, hey, Jim, check out this like cargo container shipping podcast. Like, it's really interesting. Maybe we can change our business model. I don't know that's why he sounds like that, but
I don't know if Jim sounds like that in Ohio. I'm not signing up for that, but that sounds, the way you break it down, I know I walk away and I go, well, why didn't we think of that? But that's because this is what you do for a living.
That's what I do.
And, this is the shameless plug. Before we even get into any more questions, I want you to just tell our audience what it is exactly, because I have all the details of what you do, but exactly how it is that you can help our audience, because there's only so much knowledge that we have before we need to look for an expert.
I appreciate that. And I would say this. I come from 10 plus years on the producing side of comedy television. I spent a good chunk of time in advertising. I built an internal production company at an advertising agency that was very successful. I was in podcasting for over 4 years. I touch on a lot of different media aspects, and Denim Pictures was founded in 2020. We founded in February of 2020. We shot our first commercial 2 days before everything shut down for the pandemic. And we thought, well, that was fun. What we realized is that we were more nimble and more of a white glove service than a lot of these bigger production companies. And we were able to build business organically. We had a very loyal following and series of relationships with companies like Thrillist, Blavity, Ebony, Leaf Media Group, Meredith Group, these bigger media publishers. And so while we initially started in a lot of branded content and storytelling in that space and commercials in that space, we've since evolved and found like, there's more than just that. There's this 360-degree approach. And from a podcasting standpoint, I try to look at a TV model, scale it down to a commercial budget, and squeeze it into podcasting. And beyond that, what we've started to really focus on now that, I'm no longer at UTA, I was tasked with a really interesting assignment, I should say, before I left UTA, where I was looking at the agency and finding areas where the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand, and how do we solve some of these efficiency problems. And in doing that, I realized there's a big need for off-the-shelf content for brands and sponsors to come in. Great, we want to buy this. Let's go make it. We're off to the races. Well, in doing that, we've also seen a really interesting positioning of the creator economy where creatives are down here, their content only gets to this level, brand expectations are up here. We slot in and help bridge the gap. It's not just a creative standpoint, it's also a generational aspect. We've seen a big trend recently, and again, sorry for the long-winded answer here, but we've seen a big trend recently of a lot of traditional news reporters. There's one in particular who is affiliated with New York Times, looking to go off, do their own thing. There's private equity on the table. They want to know, how do we go from like, hey, we read the newspaper, how do we get into this new era? Oh, okay, well, here's the strategy. Here's how we can help you build that, and start to look at them more as like media legacies and media empires. Shouldn't say empire, but like these larger companies. And that's what we're incredibly passionate about. And as I continue to get information and experience from, kinetic content that produces Married at First Sight and Love is Blind, like I was a consultant for them, helping them get their first show off the ground. I have all of this interesting perspective and insight, and it's like, how do we give this back? How do we share this and help inform the next generation, so we're curating a better next generation of content that comes out? It's more targeted, it's more specific. So that's kind of the whole thing. There's consulting in there as well. There's a lot of strategy and everything else that we do as well.
Well, and Marilyn, I can say, like, when I worked with Adam, what was really cool was I was like, okay, this is what my concept is for this podcast that I want to create, and this is what these are what my concerns are, and I was like, oh no, don't worry about this, or like you could just stop over indexing on this, or even he was like, hey, have you thought about what a membership might look like as a way to make money? Like there were some. So for me, it was very helpful just understanding, like, I didn't have to get a PhD in podcast systems, because I had somebody that, if I could even point me in the direction of if I needed to know more or less about something. And that was really helpful. And just to validate some of the concerns and questions that I had. And so I found the consultation just by itself massively, massively helpful. And along with that, Denim and Adam also do kind of more longer consulting for development. But even just that insight was incredibly powerful for me.
Thank you.
It is, because Tara, how many times have people said, well, you should start a podcast? Or you've heard people say, well, I'm starting a podcast, and they think it really is just grab a mic, get on the internet and start yammering. And that doesn't work all the time. For some people it does. Some people have that draw, but not everyone. And so stressing that there is a strategy behind it, that there are other things that you can do that can dovetail from it, is really, really important. And without me continuing to talk, I want to make sure that we get all of the questions answered.
All right. So we've got one. Let me see this one.
Tara, very, 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 very quickly, you mentioned something, membership,
sure.
And this is another revenue stream, subscription model, Patreon, Substack. If you're an expert in the space, news reporters are starting to do this more and more. They're publishing articles, goes X far, and then subscribe, and you're able to get the full article. That's another area that audio is going to continue to grow. Scott Galloway has also been advocating for Reddit and that space to break into podcasting. So that's another really interesting space to just keep an eye on, and how that might get involved as a player.
Nice. All right. So I think there's one question I think that we didn't get to. And it's really about kind of the audio versus video. Like, we've talked a lot about video, and we know everything's going to video. Do you think that should be the focus if we're just starting out right now?
And then really quick to add on to that, because you also do something with photos. So can you expand on that as well?
Sure. Look, I think at the end of the day, don't break the bank to get started. If video is too much of a stress financially to get your show off the ground, don't let that be a barrier to entry. Like, start with audio. Get that out. Get your vision. Start, like, find your audience. Build that first. Don't let video be, preventing you from doing that. yes, ultimately video is going to be helpful because you're also able to get marketing assets out of that in a way that are a little bit more beneficial, and marketing assets across social channels. It's naturally baked in. It is going to cost you a little bit more money from an editorial standpoint, but if you're looking at it in terms of marketing dollars, it's kind of all going to the same place. So that's what I would say. Audio is perfectly fine to start. You just have to get a little bit more creative of what are the assets that you're making to help get your show out there and reach the audience. And, is there a YouTube version? And that's the challenge, is that a lot of people, frankly, like YouTube has been a sleeper and quietly sneaking up onto the major players in the space. But look at the numbers. YouTube is driving a ton of creative traffic, and people are going there more than they're going to their TVs for content. So you also just have to be mindful of where is your audience? If they're on YouTube, then incorporate video and start to build that in and figure out this is essential to our strategy.
Nice.
And then, sorry, the photo question.
Right.
So
exactly what is that?
Well, I'm also a photographer. In what feels like another life, I did a lot of surf and water photography, and was fortunate to have some of my images published internationally. But that's always been a big part of who I am. That's something that is my creative escape and helps drive me. So one of the things that I love doing is we've done commercial shoots for different brands and products. But what I really enjoy now is, as I'm doing these shows and helping building opportunities for folks, it's also sitting down and honestly taking portraits of the guests and the hosts as they're on each episode, just knowing that, great, now this is a nice asset that they can use as a thumbnail. It becomes a marketing asset that they can then push out and help get folks to tune into the show.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm like. You use it, use everything you got.
Right. All the skills. Spend
the time. Adam, this has been so wonderful. Thank you, team. We're gonna give you a way to stay in contact with Adam. Don't worry about it, because I know that's the next question that everybody's gonna have. But Adam, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. I genuinely love talking about this stuff. So, it gets me excited.
This is a great conversation. And it's funny because I'm getting text messages too about people who are online who are enjoying the conversation, because there's not, for especially small businesses, there are not a lot of outlets where you can go and get this type of information, especially at this level and at this detail. Usually it's just me talking to Tara and then Tara calling somebody, and then we kind of put it together, and then we try and drop it in AI and say, oh, this is it. Usually that's not it.
I'm actually just an AI image, and this is all just prompt, so I don't know what you're talking about. No, this is a pleasure. I love it.
Ohio, remember?
Yeah. Jim, cargo shipping containers.
Containers. All right,
can't stand him. Never pays his invoices on time. Anyway.
Terrible. All right, so y'all, Adam has been so gracious that he is actually offering the Soul CEO community a discount on his consulting. And so if you're interested in learning more about what Adam does and taking advantage of the discount, jump on our mailing list. We're going to send out an email that has the link to the replay of this video, but it also will have the discount code. Incentive, my friends.
Right. It's worth, if nothing else, it's worth having a consultation with him. Tara and I walked away after speaking with him for an hour going, we didn't know that. That's a thing. We had no clue. And the wonderful thing is that when you're speaking with an expert, you learn the stuff that you didn't know. You don't know what you don't know until you speak with someone in the space. So please join our mailing list so you can get that discount code and chat with Adam.
All right. So in a minute, we'll put up a QR code so that you can jump on the mailing list easily. Again, Adam, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
You might have to come back because apparently I'm looking at the comments and they are
let's do it. I mean, the space is constantly evolving. As I said, it's A/B testing. Every day is different and things are unfolding. It's moving very quickly. So I'd love to come back and chat more again.
Love it. Wonderful. Thank you.
Oh,
Absolutely. And I have to say, Marilyn, I think Adam is more is people like Adam better than like us. I'm like, whatever. I'm looking at these comments.
yeah,
Get
we have a
y'all.
lot of good feedback. But listen, everybody, thank you so much. We really appreciate you dialing into us today, giving us the questions so we can share that information with Adam and just learning with us together. As you know, as solopreneurs, we have to learn together so we can grow together and be in community with each other.
Absolutely. And so y'all know the drill. Follow us. Go to the website. We've got way
I'm not sure if I'm on, but if I'm on, it has been a great pleasure just being here today with everybody. Hopefully, you take the information, have a chance to speak with Adam, and soar because that's what we want every one of you to do is just be incredibly successful. With that said, have a good one.
I'm muted. She dropped off right at the end of the call.
Right. And
Like I didn't mean to cut you off, Adam, but I was just
It's okay.
I was
all
like,
good.
I thought that was the bye, and I was like, oh, click, oh darn.
are we still live, Krista?
We may be.
And now Tara says she can't get back on. Adam, but you met Krista. You did not meet Latoya.
Hey,
So
Krista. Hey, Latoya.
is part of the team who always has great questions. She makes sure Tara and I are up to snuff. And now, I don't know, can you hear us? We call it sunshine.
Still
Yeah.
live. I don't know how to end it.
Okay, and I think we are
they
still live.
I've clicked end several times. Any tidbits you would like to share?
For me?
Yes.
I think what we could do is, yeah, we want to leave and then we can all come back for a second.
Cool.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Let's see.
It won't let me leave.
Okay, and it looks like we can't leave. It wants us to be here. Why?